Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour, armed with covert surveillance systems,
subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a bus company pulls out all the stops.
A blue Nissan Almera pulled out in front of it, and then the driver slammed on the brakes in front of the bus.
A claimer goes completely overboard with a personal injury claim.
The claim was a substantial figure in excess of £500,000 for his ongoing losses.
And IFED are on the trail of a suspected crash for cash criminal.
Well, they've got an intercom with a camera on their door, which isn't really fitting with the area or the premises, is it?
Being a bus driver can be a tricky business. There are just under 200,000 casualties a year on British roads. 1 in 40 of these involve a bus or coach. Buses provide an important service, so drivers are highly trained to be amongst the safest motorists in the world. But when accidents do happen, it's not always the bus's fault.
This incident involved our 301 service, which runs from Peckham to Waterloo. It was in the summer, 6 p.m. in the evening, and our bus was proceeding along the road when a blue Nissan Almera pulled out in front of it, and then the driver slammed on the brakes in front of the bus.
In a matter of weeks, the bus company received a claim from the Nissan driver for £3,500. Abellio didn't hesitate in investigating it.
The circumstances were quite peculiar. As a matter of course, we did everything that we usually do, contacting the call centre, filling out the incident report.
Luckily, each bus is fitted with the latest technology.
On average, across our fleet, we've probably got about 12 cameras, but it can go up to 15 cameras on some of our double decks, and the minimum is probably about 10 on a single deck. They cover all the angles, outside and inside. There's not anything that you won't be able to see when we've got an incident.
They watched the CCTV footage back, and what they saw rang alarm bells. The Nissan car pulled out in front of the bus and then started to travel slowly. The bus driver had to slow the bus down to increase the distance between the two vehicles. The Nissan in front then suddenly slammed on his brakes, and the bus went into the back of it.
The reality of the situation was obvious just purely from the CCTV. There was nothing in front of the vehicle to cause him to brake.
The Nissan driver's behaviour was also a little unusual.
The driver then acted very peculiarly. He got out of the car, wouldn't talk to our driver, and immediately was talking on his phone. All in all, it was very clear to us that there was something suspicious going on, and we instructed the police straight away.
DI David Hindmarsh from the Met Police came on board to help Abellio with their case. David heads up Operation Catcher, a police unit which identifies and prosecutes crash for cash offenders, with the unit handling up to 50 investigations and making over 300 arrests since 2010.
Abellio came to us because they were suspicious, having reviewed the CCTV that was on board the bus. They believed that the car in front had deliberately slammed on its brakes during an emergency stop, causing the bus to crash into the back. The bus had around about 30 passengers on board that day, some of which may have been standing, but even the simplest of braking of the bus could have caused them to fall over, injure themselves seriously.
The cops could clearly see what had happened and put two and two together.
Having reviewed the bus CCTV and having the experience of these type of incidents, we decided that this was a potentially induced collision. It had been deliberately induced so that the car in front of the Nissan Almera driver could defraud the insurance company, i.e. get some compensation.
Suspicious that this was an attempted crash for cash accident, the Nissan driver was called in for questioning.
He was interviewed under caution and on tape. The allegation was put to him that this was a deliberate act for the purposes of claiming off the insurance companies. He denied this. He simply said the bus had been driving too close to the back of his car and had actually collided with him.
The fraudster was convicted at Woolwich Crown Court of dangerous driving and fraud by misrepresentation. He was disqualified for 12 months and given 100 hours of community service.
This result was a good result for us. It's good that the jury recognised that this was in fact a cash for crash and believed the bus driver, because they are difficult to prosecute. There were 13 passengers on board that bus. Any one of those could have been seriously injured or even killed.
I'm happy that he's actually now got a criminal record and will think twice about doing this thing in future. A lot of thought goes into making the claim after the incident. People sometimes think they can get away with it, but given the equipment and given the investment that the bus companies have put in, it's highly unlikely that they will ever succeed.
Coming up, a claimer doubles his chances with his insurance claim.
The photographs that were supplied as proof of the damage that were caused looked remarkably similar.
And a claim for a piece of jewellery loses its glimmer.
Either he had lost 2 bracelets, or the bracelet that was lost on this occasion actually didn't exist.
Exaggerated insurance claims come in all shapes and sizes, from claimers adding on designer clothes to travel insurance, to items of furniture onto home contents insurance. But top of the list is exaggerated personal injury claims, especially those related to motor insurance. And they're on the rise.
It does appear that these types of claims where gross exaggeration in order to obtain financial gain is becoming more common, and insurers are finding more of them and investigating more of them on a year-by-year basis.
One insurer received a claim relating to a car accident in the summer of 2011.
The claimant alleged he'd sustained the injury as a result of the defendant's vehicle shunting into the rear of his. There was some concern that the symptoms presented and the manner in which he stated the incident occurred was exaggerated. He alleged it was forcible, but the defendant was actually disputing that, as stating it was only a very minor incident that had occurred in a 20-mile-an-hour zone.
An accident can be traumatic, especially serious car accidents, with those injured suffering both physical and mental injuries.
The claimant was alleging that he was unable to stand or sit for any longer than 20 minutes without the onset of pain. He was also alleging he wasn't able to carry anything heavier than light shopping bags. And in addition, and most importantly, he was unable to work and had actually had to give up his job as a direct result of the injuries he suffered.
With a prognosis of only 50% recovery and the possibility of needing a full-time carer for the future, it wasn't looking good for the injured claimer.
The claimant's claim was a substantial figure which was reserved at in excess of £500,000 for his ongoing losses.
With the prospect of paying out such an enormous amount, the insurer called in their lawyers, BML.
Following receipt of the instructions, we immediately started to investigate the claim, questioning the extent of the symptoms that the claimant was suffering, and also putting him to strict proof that the losses were suffered as a direct result of the road traffic accident.
When the lawyers contacted the claimer's employer, they couldn't believe their ears.
His employers actually provided us with a statement to the effect that he was able to drive his van. He was able to actually lift and carry significant crates and containers which weighed approximately the same as a washing machine, and he was able to undertake all of this whilst he was reporting to the medical experts that he was unable to work.
The plot thickened when further clues were uncovered online.
We searched social media and obtained images which seemed to show that the claimant was able to undertake tasks such as carrying his child, and also his mobility seemed far greater than he was reporting to his medical experts.
The insurers had no doubt that the claimer had blown his personal injuries out of proportion.
To save incurring substantial litigation costs and the risks incurred around pursuing this claim further, we would make a significantly low offer to the claimant to settle his claim, highlighting we had concerns over his credibility and the fact that we didn't believe all of the symptoms presented to his medical experts were an accurate picture of his true day-to-day life.
Realising that he'd been caught out, the claimer was willing to negotiate his claim.
The case actually concluded at a very significantly low figure, approximately a few £1,000s, which was against a case reserve of over £500,000. So there was substantial savings made. He ultimately accepted our very low offer and walked away from the claim at that point in time.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime. So really, if you want to go into insurance fraud, I would say don't do it.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
My team work tirelessly 24/7, so we know exactly what types of scams you're going to embark on, and we will come after you.
Stay where you are!
Today, IFED are cracking down on car insurance fraud. DS Marcus Allen and his team of officers are on the trail of a suspected crash-for-cash criminal. After months of research, the suspect is known to move around a lot, and so the team are hoping to catch him at one of 3 different addresses. But as he moves flat every few months, it could be a frustrating morning for the IFED team. They're en route to the first property.
We're heading off to arrest a male believed involved with others, taking out motor vehicle policies and then making claims for fictitious accidents where personal injuries have allegedly happened.
They're only a short distance from the address.
Turn left in 300 yards, then you will reach your destination.
They arrive at the first address and have parked around the corner so as not to tip the suspected criminal off. IFED often rely on the element of surprise, hoping to catch the offender on the hop. But they have to move swiftly so as not to alert the alleged fraudster. Their intel has brought them to a multiple occupancy property. These significantly increase IFED's work, as it means the team has to knock on every door within the house and check all the innocent residents to ensure their suspect isn't among them.
Good morning. I'm from the City of London Police. These officers are with me. We're here today to look for him. What's your name?
It looks as if IFED are too late and the suspect has moved on. But Marcus and the officers want to make certain.
OK, may we come in and just confirm who you are and who lives here? So like I said, we're from the City of London Police. We're all police officers. We're investigating an offence where this address has been named. Do you have any identification, please?
On entering the house, the officers attempt to verify the identities of those present, including anyone who seems completely innocent.
Have you got like a driving licence or anything? Showing your name on?
Driving licence or passport?
We can see who you are and you are who you say you are. Thank you.
OK, yeah, fine.
From the officers' inquiries, the occupant's identification checks out.
I'm satisfied that the persons here aren't connected and that the male that we're looking for has actually moved out of the address. So we're going to finish off taking details, reassure them, let them know that there's no police involvement with them, and then move on to the next address and look for the suspect there.
IFED waste no time in getting to the next property, hoping to be hot on the heels of their suspect. Within minutes of Marcus arriving, the occupants open the door.
Good morning.
PC Bond.
We're from the City London Police. We believe that this address has been used to facilitate some car insurance fraud. Okay, we're looking for... Does he live here?
But once inside, it's the same scenario, which means more searches and ID checks, but no suspect.
Good morning. Sorry to disturb you. From the City London Police. We're looking for... Is that you? Okay, as we're here in the premises, have you got some identification, please, for you and the lady?
The officers check the identification of the people at the property, but it's another dead end.
None of our suspects live here. It's a multi-occupied address, so we're just verifying everyone here, their identities, and doing checks on them. If that's all satisfactory, we'll now move on to the third address.
With such a transient suspect, the IFED team have their work cut out trying to track him down. Marcus's day isn't exactly going as planned.
The day's operation is being renamed Wild Geese.
Whilst it's frustrating that not all raids go to plan, the IFED team are still able to gather information about the suspect's movements, and they can now eliminate the other locations from their search. Sadly for Marcus and the team, conducting a mini tour of the area is just part of the job. But they have another property to check out. Within minutes, Marcus and the team arrive at their final address.
Anything? Well, if it is, they're not going to answer the door, are they? I'll just have a look.
No one has answered the door, and they can't tell if anyone's in, but something about the property just doesn't seem right to the officers.
Well, they've got an intercom with a camera on the door, which isn't really fitting with the area or the premises, is it?
No.
The property appears unoccupied. However, somebody's gone to great lengths to make it very secure. There's a camera intercom on the door. The lock is quite a sizable, expensive lock. And at the back, there's foil lining on the windows. So we are quite keen to get inside and find out what's going on.
Time is running out, but entering by force is seen as a last resort. With the help of officers back at base, Marcus attempts to track down the house owner.
One of the officers has contacted the landlord, speaking to him now to see if he'll let us in to check there's no suspects in the flat.
The property owner is on their way to assist the officers. But just as the team are preparing to enter the residence, they get a call from a colleague.
The outcome is this premises, we found out that it was a brothel with prostitutes working here. Hence the security measures that they've taken. We've now confirmed with the landlady that it's empty, and we've spoken to the local police who've confirmed that they've taken action and that it's now empty and there's no criminality going on there.
Unfortunately, it's been an uneventful day for Marcus and his team, who return to the office empty-handed. They may not have found the suspected criminal today, but will continue with their investigation and won't rest until they bring this and any suspected crash for cash criminal to justice. Accidents happen all the time in the home, from spillages on carpets to accidents with a hot iron, which is why accidental damage is one of the most common reasons for making a claim on home contents insurance. With advances in science and forensics, insurers can determine the truth behind some of these claims. Dr. Andrew Moncrief works for one of the leading forensic science organisations in the country.
For any incident, if something falls over, bends, breaks, blows up or is damaged, it'll be damaged in a way that follows various physical laws. And those laws are often predictable, often easy to study. If we come across something which seems to suggest that those laws have not been followed, then it implies human intervention.
In his time, Andrew has helped investigators with many accidental claims on home insurance, from spills of nail varnish on sofas to bleach and glue on carpet. But one spillage crops up more often than others.
Paint spills are an interesting claim for us or an interesting type of claim for us to investigate, because when you drop a tin of paint, it will spray itself around the room and over the furniture in some sometimes quite unpredictable ways. When we're faced with a paint spill, either on site or via photographs, then once again we'll be looking at those patterns, which should follow fairly predictable physical laws, and we'll be looking to see whether or not the pattern is consistent with what the claimant is saying happened. There are quite a number of fairly clear indicators with paint spills that they've actually been done deliberately by a human hand rather than accidentally.
However, the use of Andrew's forensic skills by insurers for household accidents doesn't stop there.
With an incident such as a claim for a damaged computer or a damaged television, we'll look at things like stability. Is it possible for the thing to have fallen off from where it was positioned? We'll then look at the surface that it's landing on, the height it's falling, and we'll try to tie that in with perhaps with test results from other items to see what sort of damage we expect from the impact that's been described to us. We'll also, of course, look at the number of impacts, because most things, if they're falling accidentally, only do it once. And we'll look at it and we'll see whether the damage to the television is consistent with the manner in which it's supposed to have fallen.
And don't be fooled into thinking that a small claim won't be given the same attention by an insurer as a claim for thousands.
It's actually quite difficult to simulate an accident perfectly, and the more complicated the accident, the more difficult it becomes. If we dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the incident, then there will nearly always be something to indicate that the claim has been created deliberately. But it's interesting because the amount of money that an insurer is willing to spend is sometimes considerably more than the actual value of the claim. If they find that they really do want to make a point, then we're sometimes funded really rather well to carry on looking deeper and deeper into a particular incident.
Not only do people sometimes exaggerate their claims, but they also duplicate them. Insurer QBE received 2 claims related to a TV that were remarkably similar, with a faulty picture hook being at the centre of both claims.
In the claim that was presented, it was alleged that the picture hook from the product was faulty and that it had fallen from the wall and damaged a TV casing.
When the claimant submitted some photographs to support their claim, QBE thought everything seemed to be in order.
The claim was submitted for reimbursement of the cost of replacement of the television, and QBE settled that case for the sum of £500.
However, 12 months later, another claim landed on their desk.
In 2012, QBE received a further claim for a faulty product, which was a picture frame. The picture frame hook was said to have been faulty, and this fell onto some personal property, damaging a TV and a television unit as well.
Again, the claimer had photographs on hand to help support their claim.
The second incident that was presented to us showed pictures of the television again, but also some additional photographs that showed damage to the television cabinet and also the area of where the picture frame had fallen from.
Unluckily for the claimer, the insurer thought these photographs looked familiar.
We immediately noticed on both instances was that the photographs that were supplied as proof of the damage that were caused looked remarkably similar.
Let's just have another look. These are the photographs relating to the first claim of damage to the TV. And these are the photographs relating to the second claim. Yes, remarkably similar, I'd say.
Although we could tell visually that the pictures looked the same, it still wasn't, in our opinion, enough to prove that they exactly were.
The investigator had a few tricks up their sleeve and sent the photographs off for further examination.
We forensically examined those pictures and we looked at the metadata that sits behind them, the metadata being almost a footprint of the image taken at a point in time. The photographs that were similar, that we suspected, did in fact show the same date stamp as the original claim that QBE had received.
The claimer had been caught out, but the insurer wasn't happy just to give him a slap on the wrist.
We felt we had enough evidence there to the criminal standard of proof, and that Decision was taken then to refer the matter to the police, more specifically to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, didn't hesitate in calling the claimer in for an interview, where he held his hands up.
He explained that the pictures that he had submitted in the second case were indeed from the first incident. That was a case that had been made by a previous partner of his for the faulty picture that had fallen.
The claimer had the old photographs still on his camera. Now he had a new girlfriend, he thought he would use these pictures to his advantage.
The claimant had indeed made his girlfriend phone QBE because he didn't feel he was able to portray himself well on the telephone and thus continue the claim that he'd made.
The first claim was indeed genuine, but as the claimant had admitted that the second claim was fraudulent, he was given a police caution.
He thought it was an easy way to make a claim. Unfortunately, we were able to quickly identify that the second case from that claimant was indeed a fraud.
If we lose a piece of jewellery, regardless of the value, it can be upsetting. Even more so if it's of sentimental value or a family heirloom, which is priceless. Whether it's your wedding ring or your grandfather's watch. So imagine what our next claimant felt when he lost a very special family memento.
In this case, our policyholder, a gentleman, was out on the town with some of his friends when he lost a bracelet. Well, the bracelet was not only worth £3,000, but it was a family heirloom which had been passed down from generation to generation.
A claim was made for the insured value of £3,000 within a month of the policy being taken out.
We began to become suspicious because this very valuable item hadn't actually been reported as lost to the police, which you would normally expect it to have been.
The insurer discovered that the claimant had lied about his whereabouts that night.
The other thing we discovered was that the gentleman concerned was actually not out on the town on this night and was at home.
But it seemed that social media was to be the claimer's downfall.
We made some inquiries and in fact they were quite startling what we found out. So this bracelet had in fact been lost on a previous occasion at some specific premises and not as alleged on this night out. Either he had lost two bracelets or the bracelet that was lost on this occasion actually didn't exist.
It turned out that the bracelet had been lost a few months earlier in a gym. Now it was time for RSA to confront the claimant.
We challenged our policyholder and they asked to withdraw the claim.
But the insurer wasn't having any of it.
We were so incensed that this policy had actually clearly been taken out with a specific intention of making a claim that we reported the case to IFED, who took action against him.
The Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, IFED, continued with the investigation. The claimant was then arrested and received a police caution.
He might have thought that this was worth the risk, but ultimately he's ended up with a criminal record, and he will of course also be on the insurance fraud register and will find it very difficult to get insurance cover in the future.
Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
That's the subject out the vehicle.
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a shameless con artist tries to trip up the council.
The point where he was found was approximately half a mile from where the pothole was located.
The IFED team return to haunt a greedy ghost broker.
He's got all the equipment and the capabilities to commit the type of fraud that we're investigating. I think I'm going to need a bigger car.
And two conflicting accounts put an insurer on a collision course.
The driver of the other vehicle was claiming £15,000 for personal injury, £12,500 for ongoing care, and £770 for a coach that was damaged.
A walk in the park can be anything but if you forget to look where you're going. Slips, trips and falls account for over 50% of all accidents in the UK and cost the NHS a staggering £133 million a year. This is exactly the sort of unfortunate accident experienced by 27-year-old Mark Bowyer.
The claim presented by Mark Bowyer was, on the face of it, a straightforward tripping claim that we deal with day to day. He said that he'd fallen on a pothole whilst returning home from a party.
The pothole-related tumble proved a painful experience for Mr. Mark Bowyer, who sustained a serious fractured ankle. Backed up by his father Richard and friend James Jones, Bowyer wasted no time in putting in a claim against the London Borough of Havering for the injury and loss of earnings.
The claim, once it was submitted, was investigated by the local authority, and after making those inquiries, liability for the accident was admitted, and then efforts were made to obtain a medical report so that the claim could be valued.
By now, the claim stood at a whopping £100,000. Unfortunately for Mr. Bowyer, it was soon apparent that his account was no more truthful than Pinocchio's.
Once the medical report was obtained, it revealed that he had in fact been injured when he'd fallen from a wall, rather than having tripped on a pothole, as he was alleging. Unusually, Mr. Bowyer decided that he would continue with his claim. The arguments against these records was that there was confusion, there were language difficulties when they were prepared, and simply that there'd been mistakes. That was what he said.
Already smelling a rat, but hoping to find even more conclusive evidence, the investigators had one more trick up their sleeve against the fraudsters.
We then obtained the recording of the 999 call that was made, as it transpired, by Mr. Bowyer's friend, James Jones, on the evening of the accident.
All right, mate, well, we're in, is it Elusive Park? By the lake, and my mate's fell off the boat and broke his leg.
Right, and you're near the boating, mate?
Yeah, he's in the boating, mate.
Right.
Yeah.
Is he conscious?
Yeah, he's conscious, yeah, he's in a lot of pain, though. Yeah, he's in a lot of pain, though.
Was this an accidental fall?
Yeah, it was an accident, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I hear that again? I thought he tripped in a pothole.
By the lake, and my mate's fell off the boat and broke his leg.
Right. Well, you've really put your foot in it there, mate. But not in a pothole.
There was no mistake. Mr. James Jones was quite clearly heard speaking to Mark Bowyer at the same time, asking him what had happened, and you could hear both James Jones and Mark Bowyer confirming I'd fallen from a wall.
How high is the wall?
About 3 foot.
About 3 foot, right.
Yeah.
Is he completely alert? Does he know where he is?
Yeah, you know where you are, don't you, Mark? Huh? You know where you are, don't you? Yeah, he's all right, yeah.
Yet it wasn't just the phone call that proved damning.
A very useful piece of evidence in this case turned out to be the evidence of the ambulance crew. They were able to confirm where they'd parked their ambulance and where they eventually found Mr. Bowyer, which was near a boating lake. And at this point, we could then establish that the point where he was found was approximately half a mile from where the pothole was located. And funny enough, right by where he was found, there was in fact a 3-foot wall. After a short period of negotiation with Mr. Bowyer's solicitors, the claim was discontinued and he was required to pay the council's costs of that action.
But that wasn't the end of the story. The council issued contempt of court proceedings against all three individuals, Mark Bowyer and his father Richard, as well as James Jones, who had backed up his story, all having lied in their earlier statements.
Shortly before the trial of the contempt case, Mark Bowyer and his friend James Jones conceded that they had committed a fraud, and they laid themselves to the mercy of the court. Richard Bowyer, however, said that he had no knowledge of the fraud and it was nothing to do with him. Therefore, we had to have a trial on the issue of the contempt of Richard Bowyer alone. He was an unimpressive witness, and the judge was critical of the way in which he gave his evidence, suggesting that he gave an impression that he was making it up as he was going along. And furthermore, the judge took the view, when giving judgment, that Richard Bowyer was in fact the driving force behind the fraud.
At the Royal Courts of Justice, the three men were sentenced for their greedy ploy to con Havering Council out of £100,000. Initial claimant Mark Bowyer received a 2-month prison sentence. His father Richard Bowyer received a 4-month prison sentence, and his friend James Jones was given 1 month behind bars.
I think a custodial sentence is justified in this kind of case because money can be spent better elsewhere. It can be spent on care for the elderly, education, all sorts of other activities, rather than paying off fraudulent claimants.
Still to come, a fridge fraudster finds himself frozen out.
We decided to look at Mr. Johnson's insurance history. When we did that, we were frankly amazed.
And the latest Blackbox technology plays detective to help solve a mystery crash.
Significantly, at the time of him saying that the collision had occurred, the vehicle was 2 miles away in a totally different location.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
IFED combats all sorts of insurance fraud across the board, ranging from opportunistic jewellery thefts to crash for cash.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime.
One of the department's major headaches are bogus insurance sellers, known as ghost brokers. The average car insurance premium is over £400, but young motorists can expect to pay around 3 times this much, which makes them a lucrative target for fake car insurance sellers.
Ghost broking is where an individual will pose as a legitimate insurance broker. In fact, they are not. They will charge individuals a large amount of money and then give fraudulent details to an insurance company to obtain a premium which is far, far lower. They can make a lot of money for insurance policies that are in fact useless.
These fraudsters pose as insurance middlemen who can cut costs and target drivers under 25 with insurance policies a few £100 less than the genuine products. The insurance policy either doesn't exist or is based on a completely different set of details, making the policy cheaper to buy but totally invalid for the young driver. 3 years ago, First Central Insurance found themselves the victim of a prolific fraudster. And one man that knows the case all too well is Glenn Marr, Director of Fraud.
At the end of 2011, we noticed some unusual transactions. Insurance companies rate people on a number of factors. That's how we determine whether we insure somebody and how we set the premium for the risk. On these particular cases, there was a high number of years of no claim bonus, unusually high. When we factored it all together, all of it pointed to something being wrong.
A number of identical no-claim discount letters claiming to be from another insurer soon highlighted the fraud.
This particular ghost broker spent time and energy in producing forged documents. So that shows that they understood the insurance process quite well, were quite committed in the way they were committing the fraud. One of our mechanisms for detecting fraud is picking up forged documents. So by way of producing the documents, they actually open the door for us to investigate even further.
The fake documents were the final piece of the jigsaw. This ghost broker had given the game away, and the case was referred to IFED in 2012.
This particular policy here was incepted, here it says on the 24th of September of last year, and the person incepting that policy was paid an initial amount of £345.29. Now, the policy holder in this case I've spoken to since this policy was incepted, and he has informed me that he has paid in excess of £1,000 to this particular suspect. So there we go, just on one policy, he's paid £345, yet he's received in excess of £1,000 in cash from the policy holder. So that just demonstrates exactly how much money he's making.
With the evidence stacked against him, Mark and the team head north to visit 33-year-old Atiq Khan. IFED believe the insurance scam was being run from here until 2012.
We're going to go there today now and arrest him. We're then going to hopefully conduct a search of the address. And what I'm expecting to find, or what I'm looking for, is computer equipment, mobile telephones, and any documentation. It's quite easy for these ghost brokers to actually set up. All they really need is a laptop, computer, any access to the internet, and one or two email addresses. We're aware of insurance policies that have been incepted through First Central Insurance. Yeah, well, there's 4 officers out, including myself today. 3 will go to the front door and hope to secure entry at the front door. However, 1 officer will go to the rear of the premises just in case our man decides to try and escape through the back door and over some garden fences. It's the next road up on the right.
It's a dangerous job, as the police don't know how the unsuspecting fraudster will react.
Are you ready, guy?
After donning stab vests, they go knocking.
Window? CCTV. Morning.
Morning, please. Can you come down at Sim, please? Thank you.
Morning. Detective Sergeant Mark Fulton from the City of London Police. Are you Mr. Khan? Yeah. Atiq Khan? Yeah. Mind if I come in for a second, please, mate? Thank you.
IFED have their man, but the cameras remain outside.
Yeah, obviously we've gone in and we've arrested the suspect on suspicion of fraud offences, fraud by false representation. He's initially he was a little bit surprised. I've obviously explained to him in a little bit of detail what we are investigating, and he has basically indicated to me that he is aware of the offences, he has knowledge, and that's all he said at the moment. Obviously, I'm not going to interview him at this time. That will all be done on tape back at the police station.
With the search underway, it's not long before they strike gold. Khan's computer and a couple of scanners have been seized, which have the potential to knock up counterfeit documents and to create bogus policies.
But it just shows that he's got all the equipment and the capabilities to commit the type of fraud that we're investigating. Easily sort of scan documents and send on policies and documentation relating to insurance companies and motor insurance to his prospective customers. I think I'm going to need a bigger car.
With the haul from the house looking good, Mark and his team turn their attention to the car outside, hoping for further incriminating evidence.
Under here is a sort of compartment in the boot, which has got lots and lots of paperwork, correspondence. A letter there from Swinton Insurance. Large amounts of documents within that will be taken, all seized. I've got loads of documentation in the back here. I'm going to bag that up as one. Listen, I'll leave these 3 in the back seat for now. These are... Yeah, you got enough room? Get in your way.
As the evidence mounts up, the officers make careful notes on everything they find.
Ultimately, we found large amounts of insurance documentation. Lots of letters from various different insurance companies to various different individuals, names, addresses, all around motor trade policies, insurance, motor cover. There's always that possibility, and we do find it happens quite a lot, where Once we get a foot in the door and we start searching and looking under things, that we find that it's a lot bigger than first thought. After you're going to jump in that silver, mate, all right?
With all the evidence gathered and a suspect arrested, it's been a good day for the IFED team.
All right, just jump in behind the passenger seat, laser tape. All right.
Two years later, and IFED now had a clear case against Mr. Khan, who soon found himself in the dock at the Old Bailey.
After some extensive inquiries and a long investigation, Mr. Khan was charged with a number of counts of fraud and forgery. The evidence against Mr. Khan was so damning that he had no alternative but to plead guilty at court. He was given a 12-month term of imprisonment. Historically, ghost broking has been looked upon by fraudsters as an easy way to make money. My message is to those individuals that IFED are investigating ghost brokers and will be looking to get the largest penalties at court for those offences.
With congestion on Britain's roads getting worse, there's more chance than ever of finding yourself in a jam. However boring sitting in slow traffic may be, you owe it to yourself to keep an eye on the car in front.
The claim was notified to us by our customer as a minor collision. He was driving home from the library one January morning. He told us that he'd been travelling very slowly. There was roadworks at the time with the traffic light control, so it was stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Heavy congestion going forwards, and that he just tapped into the vehicle in front of him.
This sounds like the sort of run-of-the-mill mishap that happens on our roads every day. So you can imagine their surprise when a claim arrived from the very motorist they bumped at very low speed.
The driver of the other vehicle, a lady aged 50, was claiming £15,000 for personal injury, £12,500 for ongoing care, and £770 for a coat that was damaged. We became suspicious because the circumstances described to us by our customer did not match up in any way, shape or form with what the claimant was alleging had happened.
Now faced with two conflicting accounts of the same incident, the insurers began the search for the truth.
The police report identified a witness who had seen the collision, and we subsequently spoke to him, and he was happy to give us a statement as to what he had seen at the time. He was a foreman on the roadworks where the accident occurred. He described the accident as happening at a very low speed. He said slower than a slow walk. He said the damage to both vehicles was extremely minor, and that the claimant's behaviour on the day was very strange. She made a complete song and dance of the incident, was clutching her neck, demanded that an ambulance be rung and that she be put on a stretcher to leave the scene. Her behaviour at the scene was described as being claim-orientated, as if she was trying to set herself up for a substantial personal injury claim later.
The woman's story sounded pretty fishy. As she was still keen to pursue the claim, it will be up to the courts to decide.
The case was listed for a court hearing, but the claimant failed to show up on the day. The case was therefore dismissed by the judge, who awarded us costs in the sum of £9,000. These have now been fully recovered.
Whiplash claims are a fraudster's utopia. They can claim for thousands of pounds in personal injuries, but the problem is the symptoms are often subjective. Christian Worsfold is a physiotherapist who advises the government as they look to clamp down on this compensation culture.
My role at the Ministry of Justice advising the government relates to improving the medical evidence that's collected following a whiplash injury and also improving the training and accreditation of the medical experts who carry out the examinations following whiplash injury.
Accidents are down and cars are now safer. Yet road collision personal injury claims have increased 60% since 2006. The government believes over 500,000 whip cash claims are excessive, and last year passed a new law to tackle the issues.
I think the medical examination can be improved because, in my experience, I have a lot of patients come back following these medical examinations to tell me that they weren't in there very long, perhaps they didn't remove their clothing, they weren't examined in very much depth, and patients will sometimes comment that they're not surprised that it's actually easy to fake a whiplash injury.
Insurers estimate the claims currently add £90 to an average motor insurance policy. By improving diagnosis and making challenging cases easier, the government hopes the UK will lose its unenviable title of the Whiplash capital of Europe and cut costs. When the washing machine blows up or the kids break the telly, buying a replacement is yet another cost you can do without. To protect against these minor home emergencies, over 75% of households in the UK now have contents insurance.
Mr. Johnson took out a policy with us in 2012, and within 2 days of taking out the policy with us, he made a claim for a fridge freezer, which he said was damaged when he moved house.
As the claim was made just 2 days after the policy was taken out, the insurers were immediately suspicious, and they decided to probe a little further.
We decided to just look at Mr. Johnson's insurance history, and when we did that, we were frankly amazed at the amount of previous claims that he had made, which he had failed to disclose to us when he took the policy out with us.
It turned out that Mr. Johnson hadn't just begun with a single fridge freezer.
We found out that Mr. Johnson had actually made claims with a variety of other insurers for 3 fridge freezers, 2 televisions, and other equipment, which are an obligation to declare to an insurer when you take out a policy, and he hadn't declared any of those to us.
They were clearly dealing with a serial claimer, so the case was escalated to IFED. Mr. Johnson had been frozen out.
Whilst this was a relatively small claim, the fact that he had failed to disclose so many previous claims and the level of non-disclosure, we decided to report Mr. Johnson's case to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
Mr. Johnson was arrested and soon appeared at the City of London Magistrates Court. He was found guilty and ordered to complete 40 hours community service and pay the £510 in court costs.
I think the lesson here for Mr. Johnson and anybody else who might be tempted to act like him is that insurers do share information in order to detect fraud. There are databases which insurers can search, and these include now the new Insurance Fraud Register, where those people who are proven fraudsters will be filed to the Insurance Fraud Register, and that will be available for all insurers to look up in the future.
With a record 29 million cars now on Britain's roads, that's a huge amount of motor insurance needed and a lot of potential accidents around every corner.
The main business of Accident Exchange is to provide hire vehicles for people involved in non-fault accidents. So if you're involved in an accident, it's not your fault. Accident Exchange can provide you with a like-for-like replacement car. We have about 3,000 vehicles, probably about £50 million worth of cars. With having a fleet of over 3,000 vehicles, it's inevitable that some of our vehicles are involved in accidents.
Unfortunately for Neil and his team, some of these accidents aren't always what they seem.
What we found out is because some clients use a hire car, which is covered on corporate insurance, then maybe they think they won't be investigated. They are investigated.
Incredibly, Neil's cars are fitted with the equivalent of an aeroplane's black box recorder. And these telematics devices help investigators determine what happened to a car.
Telematics is new technology that's fitted to some vehicles, not every vehicle, that will give us an immense amount of data. Most telematics devices now can tell us the location of the vehicle, the speed, the direction of travel, how it's been driven. It's one piece of a jigsaw in relation to an accident investigation.
Martin Bramwell is managing director of a telematics company working alongside APU and is the go-to tech guy who can explain the science behind the data.
The black box in this vehicle, or telematics unit if you like, is collecting data all of the time. Approximately every 1 minute we will collect the location and direction of travel of the vehicle, but it will also collect driving behaviours that are considered abnormal as soon as they occur. Fast accelerations greater than something around 0 to 60 in 10 seconds are recorded as a harsh acceleration event. We can also detect harsh swerving. So for instance, going around roundabouts or corners in too hard a manner will also register as a bad driving behaviour.
The computer system at HQ has been receiving communications from the car's Blackbox device. Now back at the office, Martin analyses the data.
This is the start of the journey, clearly marked. Each one of these blue dots indicates the location and the date and time together with its direction of travel. Occasionally you will see these harsh braking event markers, which in this case have occurred just as the vehicle has been approaching some junctions.
It's exactly this kind of electronic information that proved worth its weight in gold to the accident investigations team.
Whenever there's a claim, what we will do is investigate it to the best of our ability, using all the tools we have available to us. There was a claim that came to my attention where a client had said that whilst on hire, he'd had a collision in the vehicle. Probably a low-speed collision, nothing significant that was going to cause a lot of damage to the vehicle. In a side road, so no CCTV opportunities, no independent witnesses, just a quiet road on a residential estate. And there were 3 personal injury claims in the other vehicle. The value of this claim was around about £20,000, a lot of money.
With a lack of supporting evidence and no footage of the incident, it was hard to tell whether either party was telling the truth. Luckily for APU, technology became the expert witness.
We looked at the telematics device and significantly at the time of him saying that the collision had occurred, the vehicle was 2 miles away in a totally different location. With this collision, we could say that it never actually occurred. From that, the personal injury claims were withdrawn.
It was now becoming increasingly obvious that both the claimant and the driver weren't being honest.
There were significant similarities between the client's case and the third party's case, which tended to suggest for me, with hindsight, that they'd perhaps collaborated in relation to making this claim up with a view to trying to get a personal injury claim forward that wasn't going to be challenged because it's a big hire company, no one's going to investigate it, and they were wrong.